has a name. It's called shave and a haircut. And the reason, this is a little bit of trivial information. It goes like this. Does everyone know what 2 bits means in American English? It comes actually from the old days when there was competition in currencies. The state was not the only issuer of money. There were many issuers of money. And a very popular form of money in the southern U.S. was a Spanish dollar, which is a very large silver coin that was very good, high-quality silver and very reliable. And you would make change by cutting it into 8 pieces. Each one is called a bit, so like a little pie wedge. So when you had actual monetary competition, each one is called 1 bit, or they're also called pieces of 8. So if you see old pirate movies in English, they say there are many pieces of 8, which means these silver coins. There are 8 ones, and each one is called a bit. So there's 8 bits in 1 Spanish dollar. So it's 2 bits is 1/4. 2 eighths equals 1/4. So you say 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, $1. All for me, stand up and holler. Right? But this one says shave and a haircut, 2 bits. So there you go. You now know something that almost no other people in Malaysia know. And you sometimes hear old people in the US will say that cost 6 bits, which means 3/4 of $1. It's very, very old-fashioned English. But now let's talk about the important topic we were going to talk about, which is about the welfare state. And this will give us an opportunity to address these questions that have been raised that are very powerful and significant. And in particular, I want to address questions about the relationship of the welfare state to freedom, because some people have given an argument that the welfare state increases our freedom by making it possible to be free from want, free from hunger, and so on, and that therefore the welfare state represents an expansion of freedom. We also hear it said, and this is something that returns to what we discussed earlier, that we might have to choose between property rights and human rights. Can everyone see the board here again? Can you? Okay. I'll move around a bit. And one of the problems with that view, property rights or human rights, is of course there's a certain confusion in it. No one believes that property has rights in distinction from humans. Anyone who believes in property believes humans have rights over property, such as the right to exclude. And these rights have very, very important social features. When farmers have property rights in their land, they will be more effective, more efficient, more productive farmers. When fishermen have property rights in the fish, they have incentives not to destroy all the fish. Like the Icelandic fishermen, as I pointed out, when they were given the real property right, they lowered the total allowable catch because they wanted to preserve fish in the future and bring back the fish stocks. So it's always been about human rights, having human beings having property over other things. So we can ask this question, what do we mean by property? John Locke, very important philosopher of individual rights, used the term property to mean life, liberty, and estate, which he calls by the general name of property. He also talks on other occasions about life, liberty, health, limbs, namely your body, and estate, to refer to property. So that property means all of those things. There's a Marxist philosopher, C.B. Macpherson, who wrote a book that I think is based on a fundamental mistake. It's called The Philosophy of Possessive Individualism. And it's a systematic attack on liberalism. And he said the liberals only cared about property. But what he meant by that showed he didn't understand what property means. Because the way he used property was things. This is property. But the way liberals use property means all of your rights. You have a property in your life, a property in your freedom, a property in your health, not to be damaged by someone else. If another person comes and puts smoke into your house and it makes you sick, they violated your property. They've infringed on your fundamental rights. Now, English, one of the reasons why Macpherson made this mistake wasn't that he was dishonest, he just wasn't a very good scholar. He made the mistake because the English language has changed in various ways. It has become less accurate, less useful in describing legal relations. All the Roman lawyers understood rights were understood as a bundle, a collection of rights that we might have all together. So over land, you might have the right to live on it, work on it, but my neighbor has the right to walk across it to get to the water. In English legal term, it's called an easement, the right to walk across the land. Other people have the right to fly over it. Not in the medieval time when there were no airplanes, but today no one says, how dare you fly over my land if you're 30,000 feet up. If you're 10 feet up, he might complain. But if you're way up there in the sky, there's no problem with it. So we understand there's a bundle of rights, and we might transfer them amongst ourselves to better our situation. So the older English, as I have here, is to say, I have a property in this object. This is the object. My property means my right. I have a right in this object or to this object. But contemporary English has declined in its ability to capture this legal relationship, and now in English you say, this object is my property. But for older writers who wrote a more precise English, like John Locke, that makes no sense. It's a nonsensical statement. That to say a pen is my property, he said, is crazy. A pen is a thing. A property means right. Don't confuse them. It's a right over the thing. But you want to distinguish the object from the right, which is the legal relationship that you have to the object and to other people. For instance, the right to exclude them from its use, or to sell it to them, and so on. And we see that there's a transition in this language at the time of James Madison, who was the primary author of the American Constitution, very interesting political thinker and philosopher. Can we turn the lights down? If someone can help on that, it's so bright back here. Amin, do you know how to do that? Thank you. He mentioned property. Oh, that's much better. In its particular application means our rights over the external things of the world and exclusion of every other individual. Right? That was the modern meaning that was emerging to property. But in its larger and juster meaning, the one that John Locke uses, everything to which a man may attach a value and have a right. A man's land or merchandise or money is called his property in the former sense. But in the latter sense, a man is a property in his opinions, in the free communication of them. A property of particular value in his religious opinions. Interesting use of the term, to have a property in your religion. It doesn't mean you own religion like you own a pen, but it means you have a right to your religion, to the free exercise of your religion. So that wider meaning of property, you can even have a property in your religion, in the free use of your faculties, the safety and liberty of his own person and body. And he put it very nicely to show this change from the Old English to the New. As a man is said to have a right to his property, he may be equally said to have a property in his rights. Shows that beginning of this transition from the more precise English to the modern use of the term. Now, rights involve allocating responsibilities. We recognize rights among entities or creatures or beings that can be held responsible for their behavior. Remember, I talked about dominium, responsibility, as the foundation of rights. Only among creatures who can make choices. If you have a creature who really can't make any choices, in that regard, we wouldn't say that creature has rights.